Hey guys, it is Wendy Kennedy here. I shared a video a little while back about coping as an empath, and if you missed it, I'll go ahead and leave the link for that below. But I got a lot of questions from people about how to process emotion. And I know that the guides talked about it a little bit in the video, but I wanted to have them kind of go over it again and maybe even a little deeper, because so many of us have stuff coming up at the moment. There's so much going on in the collective energy, and those of us who are sensitive are really feeling it, and that is triggering our own stuff. And it's just time for us to process all that stuff that's been suppressed. So, processing emotion is actually not a difficult thing. The mechanics of it, not so difficult, but we're just not really taking the time to do it. So without further ado, here is the Pleiadian Collective to share their perspective on processing emotions. Yes, hello dears. This is the ninth Dimensional Pleiadian Collective, and it is a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to connect with you. So we understand that many of you are still a little confused as to how exactly to process emotions. And as Wendy was saying, the mechanics are actually not difficult. It's just that in part you're not taking the time to do it, or you've been taught that it's not good to feel emotion. You're not supposed to do it. It's not correct for a man to feel his emotions, or big girls don't cry. So, you're going through a sector of space here that is very high in photonic energy. Photonic energy is light, and it is helping you to bring up anything that has been suppressed, anything that is of a lower vibration, whether you're talking about thoughts, the frequencies of thoughts, or emotions. And what many of you are noticing is that you can feel quite emotional and you don't know why. And the truth of it is, you don't have to know why. A lot of what's coming up is coming up simply to be processed, because everything that you stuff down and you have stuffed down through your lifetime will at some point have to come up to be processed. What most of you will do is, if you experience grief very early on in your childhood, that gets stuffed down. And then as a teenager or as an adult, you have a similar event vibrationally where you're experiencing that same frequency of grief, and you'll have a release, and along with it will come that childhood grief. All right, that same frequency gets processed. So many of you will only allow yourself to process small bits and pieces at a time, and then you start to say, oh, it's too much, it's too intense, and I want to shove it back down. And so you'll put a lid on it, you'll tamp back down on that. And then another opportunity will be created, because that frequency is in your field, where you're vibrating in your field subconsciously, gets pulsed out and reflected back to you. And again, as you're going through this sector of space, this high frequency energy is wanting all these lower frequencies to entrain with it. All right, so they're vibrating, they're increasing, and they're getting your attention. So emotions start to come to the surface. Now, when you experience an emotion, sometimes it may not be an appropriate place for you. You might say, all right, in the middle of this business meeting is not the best place for me to start weeping. So make sure, if you're not in a space to process that emotion, that you take time before you go to bed that evening to take stock, to reimagine what was coming up. Because again, as we said, at some point you're going to have to experience it in order to transmute it. Now, you don't have to linger in the emotion. You can just allow yourself to feel it and then allow it to dissipate. And this can last for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, or you can hang on to it and you can experience it for 30 years. It's entirely up to you. So what we would recommend that you do in the moment, if you have the time, or later on if you don't, is just to allow yourself to experience the emotion and just observe it. What does it feel like in your body? What's going on? Is there tension in the body? Is the body expanded? Is the body hot? Is the body cold? Is there pain in a particular area in the body? And then notice what's going on with your thoughts. Are they positive? Are they negative? Is the inner critic very busy, or is your mind still? And then the emotion itself. If you want to give it a label, go right ahead, because what this allows you to do is to begin to observe subtle frequency. And the more you observe it, the better off you're going to be able to read subtle frequencies. And that's vital if you want to expand your extrasensory perception, because things in the higher realms, the multidimensional information, is subtle frequency. So you've got to begin to attune yourself to the subtleties. It's like learning how to read. Once you learn to read the subtle frequencies, all of this knowledge and information becomes available to you. Just as a child, when you could start to read a book, then you could go to the library and pull out any book you wanted. It's very much the same thing when you learn to read subtle frequencies. You're reading universal energies. So just acknowledge, all right, well, this feels like anxiety. This feels like stress. This feels like worry. This feels like distrust. All right? Just give yourself a moment to observe it. And you can also do this with the positive emotions as well. And we actually encourage you to do that. And we'll talk about those in just a moment. Most of the time when you're wanting to process emotion, you're wanting to process out the negative. So just allow yourself to observe. And as you're observing it from a neutral standpoint, it actually begins to dissipate from the field. All right, because you're not stuffing it down, you're not making it wrong, you're not making it bad, you're not making it uncomfortable. All right, you're just allowing. That allowance is the fastest way through it. And as we said, you're going to have to experience it at some point, but it doesn't have to be there for days and days and days. You can experience for 30 seconds, 3 minutes, and you'll find that you'll reach a point where it just doesn't seem to be in the forefront of your mind any longer. You're not feeling it so much in the body. And that's when you know that you have completed the processing for that emotion in the moment. Now, the other piece that we want to talk about here with emotion is that oftentimes you think that emotions are a byproduct of an experience. And truly, they're not. You create your reality through your vibrational state, and that includes your thoughts and your emotions. So as you are having those vibrational experiences, you are pulsing them out, and then that is getting reflected back to you in the physical world. Those frequencies that you encounter in the physical world are a mirror, are a reflection, are a match for the frequencies that you're holding internally, that you are vibrating and pulsing out. And they reinforce, from your perspective of reality, the original emotion. You think that, oh, this thing happened and it made me happy, or it made me feel a certain way. No. The vibration already existed within you and you just highlighted it. You had the reflection of the frequency that was already existing within you. So if you want to have a particular vibrational, emotional state, and the things that you want to create in the world, you want to be of a match for that frequency, so let's say joy, or love, or happiness, imagine them first. What would it feel like for me to experience love? What is love in the moment? Now, the ego likes to get a little tricky here. It likes to discount the things that you're saying. So if you say, I am happy, the ego might say, oh, who is she kidding? She's far from happy. She's depressed. But if you say, I wonder what would it feel like to be happy, and then allow yourself to imagine it, the ego doesn't get triggered in the same way, and it doesn't get as activated. And so you can allow yourself, the ego will allow you, to imagine that happiness. You start to imagine it, it starts to get pulsed out, your reality reflects matching frequencies, and it reinforces the original emotion. All right? So you don't have to wait for the external world to bring you a circumstance to feel a particular way. Embody it first vibrationally, and then reality will start to reflect it back to you. All right. Also, any emotions that are unlike the ones that you are wishing to project out into the world. So if you're saying, I'm wondering what it would feel like to be happy, you might notice that those lower emotions start to come up because they're not a match for happiness. And in order to maintain that happiness frequency, you've got to clear out the lower frequencies. So some of that stuff might start to come up as well. And just observe it. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to know where it came from, because it can come from experiences in early childhood that you don't necessarily remember. It can also be an experience that is reinforced from another lifetime that you may not have memory of yet. You don't have to know that. You just have to observe it and allow it to dissipate. Think about a balloon just rising, a helium balloon that just rises. It's effortless. And this is what happens with your emotions as you observe them. And then it just dissipates. All right? It just disappears. Once it gets released, it gets broken down into pure energy and pure light again. So you're trying to hold down light when you hold down emotion. And when you let it go, it naturally wants to transmute back to its original form. All right? So we hope that helps you. Have fun exploring it. But definitely, if you don't have time in the moment to process, allow yourself time at the end of the day. And truly, this can make a big difference in your vitality, your happiness, and your general well-being. Too often you think that the things that you all have to do are very, very complicated. They're not. They're actually very simple. And if there's one idea we can get across to you, it's that it's not about learning more theory. It's not about understanding more about metaphysics. It's about practicing the basics. And that's how you advance. That's how you begin to gain access to greater amounts of universal knowledge and wisdom. All right? It's more complex, but it's the basic building blocks that once you have mastered, it's like a set of Legos. You can build anything you want, but first you need to learn how to create within yourself, if you will, the different building block shapes. All right? So feel free to call on us directly. You don't need Wendy. And until we hear from you, we are around, we are watching, we are waiting, and we are sending many, many well wishes. So there you have it, a few words from the Pleiadian Collective on emotion. If you like this video, please share it, because it might help someone else who's having a challenging time. Give us a thumbs up, a social share, subscribe, or head on over to higherfrequencies.net for more channelings from the P's. Thanks for joining me today. Have an amazing day, and I'll be in touch soon.